The film begins with the news that a woman named Hyun has died. People think her husband, Bae Min-kyu, who is very powerful and connected to the mafia, might have killed her. This news is all over the place, and everyone is talking about it. For months later, nobody knows what really happened, and people are starting to wonder why the prosecutor's office can't figure it out. Meanwhile, at the prosecutor's office, a young prosecutor named Young-ju gets the job to investigate Hyun's death. But there isn't enough proof, so Bae Min-kyu isn't charged with anything right now. Soon after, Young-ju talks to another prosecutor, Prosecutor Cha, who also wants to find out what happened to Hyun. They usually don't get along and don't like each other much, but they decide to work together on this tricky case. Meanwhile, in a gambling spot, we see a detective named Oh who is shocked to find his mom there, gambling. Back at home, he gets really mad at her for gambling illegally. His younger brother, Jin-woo, who is a sweet guy dreaming of becoming a famous chef, helps calm him down. Jin-woo is so dedicated to his dream that he plans to go to Seoul for a big cooking event hosted by a master chef. In Seoul, Jin-woo went to a fancy restaurant and seemed to be waiting for someone. When that person didn't show up, he left and went back home. The next day, a woman working at the restaurant screamed loudly when she discovered a man's body covered in blood. At the same time, Prosecutor Cha was having breakfast with his mom, Dr. Ryu, when he heard about the body. He rushed to the scene and noticed that the way the man died was very similar to another recent case. Realizing this, Prosecutor Cha quickly declared it a planned murder. Because he's known for being good at solving murder cases, his boss gave him the responsibility to handle this new case. Early in their investigation, Prosecutor Cha and his team thought the killer was probably someone very good with knives, as the cut on the victim's ankle was just like one found on another body before. During their investigation, they found a video of artist Lee Eun-byeol showing off her latest kitchen knife. In the video, there was Bae Min-kyu, Lee Eun-byeol's boyfriend, who had been a suspect in a previous murder case. Prosecutor Cha told his team to buy the same type of kitchen knife that the artist, Lee Eun-byeol, was advertising. They got the knife and sent it to a forensic lab to see if it matched the wound on the victim's body. After waiting for a while, the lab results confirmed that the knife matched the wound size. Prosecutor Cha then went to talk to Prosecutor Young-ju about the case. It was mentioned that Cha used to have feelings for Young-ju, but she didn't feel the same way. Together, they continued to work on the case. While they were on their way, Cha got a call saying that the knife Lee Eun-byeol advertised had been stolen by robbers. Then, the scene shifts to Woojin City. At that time, Detective Oh, who was eating at a restaurant, received a call about a murder at a villa. He quickly went to the crime scene and was shocked to see that the victim's wounds were very similar to those in previous cases. He immediately called Prosecutor Young-ju to tell her about it. Young-ju, who was with Prosecutor Cha, hurried to the crime scene. When they got there, they were convinced that this was another murder by the same person. The next day, they held a meeting where Detective Oh shared that the villa where the body was found belonged to the father of Bae Min-kyu, who was suspected in the case. After the meeting, Detective Oh went straight to a dental clinic owned by Bae Min-kyu. At the clinic, he met a dentist who acted very weird and nervous when he found out Detective Oh was a police officer. At the clinic, Bae Min-kyu kept saying that he wasn't involved because he was with his new girlfriend in Seoul on the night of the incident. But Detective Oh cleverly upset the girlfriend by mentioning that Bae Min-kyu was still talking to his ex, Eun-byeol. This made his girlfriend very angry, and it caused Bae Min-kyu to show his true colors. Even though he didn't have a warrant, Detective Oh arrested him on the spot. However, Bae Min-kyu again managed to deny everything when questioned. Meanwhile, in Woojin City, Jin-woo, who was delivering food, accidentally ran into Detective Hyuk, who was gathering information from people who saw what happened. When Jin-woo got home, he burned something mysterious in a box, which Detective Hyuk saw. At that time, Hyuk found out that Jin-woo was closely connected to the third victim, Hee-ju, and they had messaged each other shortly before she was harmed. Realizing this, Prosecutor Cha told Detective Hyuk to keep an eye on Jin-woo. At Jin-woo's shop, Detective Hyuk was shocked to see the type of knife Jin-woo was using. In the afternoon, Detective Hyuk brought Jin-woo and other evidence to Seoul, pointing to Jin-woo as a suspect in the third death case. Detective Oh, seeing his younger brother accused, got upset and demanded explanations from Prosecutor Cha. Prosecutor Cha explained that Jin-woo had been seen entering the restaurant where the chairman was found dead. Furthermore, Prosecutor Cha pointed out that Jin-woo had messaged the victim just an hour before she was killed. He also mentioned that Jin-woo owned a knife identical to the one that had disappeared, which belonged to Eun-byeol. Hearing all this, Detective Oh decided to take Jin-woo's knife to a forensic expert to have it examined. In the interrogation room, Jin-woo claimed he bought the knife from a website called Lemon Tree. He added that Lemon Tree had informed him about the exhibition at the Seoul restaurant and had planned to meet him there. However, Jin-woo went home after waiting a long time because Lemon Tree never showed up. Jin-woo's mother also stated that on the night of the third murder, Jin-woo had planned to leave, but returned home because she was hungry. Later, Detective O received forensic results showing that the knife Jin-woo owned did not match the wounds on the victim's body. He also noted that Jin-woo had a unique way of sharpening his knives, which made his knives different from others. With all the evidence disproving the accusations, Jin-woo was cleared of all charges. At night, Detective O visited Jin-woo and showed him a video about Bae Min-kyu's new girlfriend. The next day, Detective O shared a recording from his conversation with Eun-byeol. In it, Eun-byeol said that Bae Min-kyu wasn't with her on the night of the incident and had actually gone to Woojin. With this new evidence, Prosecutor Cha quickly issued an arrest warrant for Bae Min-kyu. But when Detective O went to the dental clinic to arrest him, he learned that Bae Min-kyu had already flown to America. Back at the prosecutor's office headquarters, the leaders were upset because details of the case had been leaked to the public. Everyone was mad at a reporter named Park, who was believed to have leaked the information. Detective O was so angry that he punched reporter Park, but when Park tried to punch back, he accidentally hit Prosecutor Cha, triggering his heart alarm. That same afternoon, they found out who owned the Lemon Tree account that Jin-woo said he bought the knife from. It was registered to someone named Lee Min-shan. Upon hearing that, Detective O remembered a doctor at Bae Min-kyu's dental clinic named Lee Min-shan. Realizing this connection, Detective O rushed to Lee Min-shan's house. There, he found a knife and several photos of the victim. The scene changes to a mysterious person who informs the prosecutor's office about where Lee Min-shan is currently. Detective O and his partner quickly head to a hotel. There, they find Lee Min-shan, who had shockingly taken his own life. To celebrate solving a series of murder cases, the entire team goes out and celebrates a bit too much at a restaurant. Before they all head home, Detective O and Prosecutor Cha argue over who gets to take Prosecutor Young-ju home, but she chooses to go with Detective O. On their way home, Detective O, who has feelings for Young-ju, proposes to her. The next day, Detective O, recognized for his work, is invited by the National Intelligence. He plans a small celebration at his house and Jin-woo prepares for the party. Unfortunately, the event is cancelled in the evening, and though disappointed, Jin-woo manages to stay cheerful. Later, his mom calls to say his girlfriend really wants fish, so Jin-woo heads to the beach to catch some. At the beach, Jin-woo becomes frightened by a mysterious man following him. The man confronts him on the rocky shore, pushes him, and Jin-woo falls and hits his head. While he's down, the man strangles him until he faints. Surprisingly, this attacker turns out to be reporter Park. After several hours, Jin-woo was in the hospital where Dr. Ryu operated on him. The surgery went well, but Dr. Ryu explained that Jin-woo was now brain dead and might not survive if there wasn't a big improvement soon. At that time, Detective O felt something was off and went to the place where Jin-woo was hurt. The police there said it was an accident, but before he left, Detective O found a clue and it was a very expensive jacket button. Elsewhere, the chief prosecutor told Prosecutor Cha he needed to go to training in America. Prosecutor Cha had to accept this, even though it was tough. He told Young-ju about it, and she was really upset that he was leaving, especially at a time like this when they needed to support Jin-woo. Back at the hospital, the doctor said there was nothing more they could do for Jin-woo, and he was declared dead. They suggested donating some of Jin-woo's organs since he was registered as an organ donor. This reminded Detective O of a time 7 years ago when Jin-woo had suddenly told his family he wanted his organs donated if he ever died. A year after the incident, Detective O and his team are now highly respected within the police force, known for successfully solving crimes involving mafias and powerful people. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Cha has returned to Korea, and on his flight back, he unexpectedly runs into Bae Min-kyu, who is also returning to Korea. In another place, Detective O and Young-ju are at their mother's house to hold a memorial service for Jin-woo. After the service, they say goodbye to head back to Seoul. Before leaving, Detective O gives a large sum of money to their mother. In Seoul, Detective O and Young-ju are living in the same apartment building. That night, Detective O is shocked to receive a message with a video showing what really happened to Jin-woo. He takes this video to a digital forensics agency to try to find out who sent it, but they can't trace the sender. However, they confirm the video is real. Detective O then meets with his friend June, who is an expert in fashion. June quickly figures out what the jacket buttons are made of. They go to the tailor shop where the jacket was made and look at the list of buyers. In that moment, Detective O is stunned to find Bae Min-kyu's name among the buyers. At the same time, Young-ju and Prosecutor Cha, attending a seminar, receive a video message claiming that the person who committed a murder 7 years ago wasn't Lee Min-chan, who had taken his own life, but another person who is the actual killer. Back at headquarters, the team gathered to watch a video. Detective O mentioned finding buttons near where his younger brother's accident happened, and one of the people who bought those buttons was Bae Min-kyu. In the video, they noticed that the watch worn by the person who did something wrong was the same as Bae Min-kyu's watch. They confirmed it was indeed a match. After the meeting, Detective O and his friend, Detective Jun, watched Bae Min-kyu's house to see what he would do next. After a long wait, Bae Min-kyu left his house and went to a restaurant where he met a woman. There, he got angry and slapped a waiter who accidentally spilled a drink on him. Detective O saw this and confronted Bae Min-kyu, which led to Bae Min-kyu getting hurt badly and needing to go to the hospital. At that time, Detective O was secretly pleased because during the fight, he managed to take Bae Min-kyu's cell phone. The next day, Prosecutor Cha's assistant, Heijo, brought new documents that showed all the murder victims had been treated by Dr. Ryu. That afternoon, unexpectedly, the chief prosecutor asked Prosecutor Cha to disband his team and stop investigating the Bae Min-kyu case. Despite the gravity of the situation, Prosecutor Cha followed orders and closed the case. The next day, Prosecutor Cha invited Detectives O and Jun over to his house for a meal. During the meal, he suggested that they should secretly look into the case again, which made everyone really happy. After their gathering, Detective O, while on duty, was shown a suspicious photo by his best friend. The photo captured reporter Park at the scene of Jin-woo's accident, which raised everyone's suspicions about Park. They devised a plan to sneak into Park's house while Heijo, another detective, distracted Park by inviting him out. In a short time, they managed to get into Park's house. However, Park's phone alarm went off because he checked his security camera and saw Detective O inside. At that time, Park realized Heijo had tricked him into leaving his house as part of a setup. Inside, Detective O was shocked to find that Park's room looked just like Prosecutor Cha's room he had visited before. Even more shocking was the discovery of a secret room filled with a collection of knives and photos of victims. Meanwhile, realizing he was caught, Park quickly kidnapped Heijo and escaped. Detective O rushed to arrest Park but found neither him nor Heijo at the expected location. He checked the nearby security cameras and was surprised to see Heijo's phone discarded. Soon, the news about Park turned him into a widely recognized fugitive on TV. After the news got out, reporter Park started being more cautious. He even changed how he looked to avoid being recognized by the police. When Park got to Chongnyeon Station on his bike, he saw police checking people. Thinking fast, he pretended he couldn't speak Korean and spoke Mandarin instead, which helped him slip past the inspection. Meanwhile, in the hospital room where Bae Min-kyu was recovering, a nurse sneaked a voice recorder under his bed. When he woke up and saw the news that reporter Park was now a fugitive, he was shocked. Fearing that Park might come after him, he asked his father to help him move abroad. From a distance, reporter Park was watching the hospital where Bae Min-kyu was staying. Meanwhile, Detective O, knowing that Park would likely come for Bae Min-kyu, decided to use this to his advantage. He approached Bae Min-kyu with an arrest warrant and suggested they work together. Realizing he was in a tight spot, Bae Min-kyu agreed to cooperate. When Detective O was about to leave the hospital, he spotted someone acting suspiciously near Bae Min-kyu's room. The person ran off when they saw the guards, but it turned out they were just a decoy. Meanwhile, reporter Park, disguised as a doctor, slipped into Bae Min-kyu's room unnoticed. There, Park threatened Bae Min-kyu with a video that showed him harming his wife. After Park left, Detective O returned to the room and found a listening device hidden under the mattress. Prosecutor Cha's team then met to come up with a plan to catch reporter Park. They decided to try and trap him by sending Bae Min-kyu home, hoping Park would follow. Meanwhile, in the evening, Bae Min-kyu went home with his private driver, but the police were already watching the house. When Detective O arrived to check on Bae Min-kyu, he discovered that Bae Min-kyu had vanished. At the same time, at her apartment, Young-ju was confronted by Bae Min-kyu, who had escaped Detective O's watch. She was knocked out and tied up in Bae Min-kyu's car, which sped off. When Detective O and Prosecutor Cha couldn't reach Young-ju, they checked the street CCTV and saw Bae Min-kyu's car heading towards Chamdong City. Inside the car, Young-ju regained consciousness and tried to take control of the car from Bae Min-kyu. After escaping, Young-ju managed to stop a car that was passing by to get a ride. But it turned out the car belonged to reporter Park. Both Bae Min-kyu and Young-ju were then taken to a villa owned by Prosecutor Cha. At the villa, reporter Park planned to harm Young-ju to hurt Prosecutor Cha, who was Young-ju's boyfriend. They even planned to run away to Saudi Arabia to escape Prosecutor Cha's pursuit. Meanwhile, after realizing that reporter Park's room looked just like his own, Prosecutor Cha figured out that Bae Min-kyu's car was very close to his villa. They quickly headed to the villa to check things out. In the afternoon, Park showed them Haejo, who he had locked up downstairs. At that time, Bae Min-kyu, entering at that moment, was shocked to find himself trapped as well. Then, they started to harm Young-ju by tying her up and putting her in a swimming pool to endanger her. Feeling betrayed and hurt, Bae Min-kyu decided to tell Prosecutor Cha that reporter Park was planning to flee to Saudi Arabia. At the airport, Park, disguised as an Arab, was approached and drugged by someone. The scene then shifts to the airport area. We see a woman named Marie, who is staying at a hotel right across from Dr. Ryu. It was mentioned that she had met reporter Park. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Cha got a call telling him that reporter Park was found dead after setting himself on fire. After running a DNA test, the doctors confirmed that the bones belonged to reporter Park. The next day, a woman named Marie gave a large sum of money to Dr. Ryu and invited her and Prosecutor Cha to an exhibition she was organizing. At the end of their conversation, Dr. Ryu asked Marie about her son, whom she hadn't met yet. It wasn't clear who her son was, but in the car, Dr. Ryu mentioned that Marie's son had passed away. Meanwhile, with the news of reporter Park's death confirming he was no longer a threat, Detective O felt his mission was over and returned to Woojin City with Young-ju. But when they got there, they were surprised to find his mother and best friend preparing for Jin-woo's birthday celebration. This was confusing because they had just celebrated Jin-woo's birthday the day before. Upset and confused, Detective O demanded an explanation, which made his mother very nervous and she quickly explained everything. It is said that a long time ago in Woojin, there was a young woman named Marie who was very beautiful and pregnant without being married. Her boyfriend didn't want to take responsibility, and even after their child was born, he never showed up. Overwhelmed by stress, Marie disappeared, and it was believed she jumped into the sea, leaving behind her son, little Jin-woo. Since then, Detective O's mother took care of and raised Jin-woo. When Jin-woo was in high school and Detective O was away in the military, Marie came back. She explained that she hadn't died cause turns out a ship had rescued her from the sea. Back to the present, to help ease her son's pain, Detective O's mother gave him a letter that Jin-woo had kept for a long time. Meanwhile, after her meeting with Marie, Dr. Ryu seemed very upset. She was even more shocked to hear that Prosecutor Cha wanted to marry Young-ju, especially since Young-ju was from Woojin. That same day, Prosecutor Cha approached a thoughtful Young-ju. He decided to propose to her straightforwardly. However, Young-ju said she would only marry him if they could solve Jin-woo's death case. At the end of their conversation, Prosecutor Cha revealed that he used to have a very weak heart but had fully recovered thanks to a heart transplant he had before going to America a year ago. Meanwhile, Detective O was shocked to find Jin-woo's diary, which he learned was written by his mother's boyfriend. Confronted by an angry Detective O, the boyfriend admitted he had been told by a doctor named Chung, who worked with Dr. Ryu, to spy on Jin-woo. Feeling that something was off, Detective O went to a friend to learn more about who Chung was. His friend explained that Chung was a member of a special forces group, and had a clean record. Curious, they went to the office to find out more about him. There, one of the soldiers described Chung as a kind, tough, and responsible person who had nearly died on a secret mission but was saved by Dr. Ryu. At the end of their conversation, the soldier mentioned that Chung also used another name which was Andreo. Hearing this name, Detective O was shocked. He remembered the jacket button he had found at the scene of Jin-woo's accident. Turns out, one of the suit buyers was listed as Andreo. Soon after, Detective O rushed back to the suit shop where he tried calling a number listed under the name Andreo. As he dialed, he pieced together that his mother's boyfriend had been ordered by Chung to spy on Jin-woo because of something related to the heart transplant that Prosecutor Cha had undergone. In the evening, Detective O met with Prosecutor Cha and showed him all the evidence he had collected, mentioning that the heart transplant seemed to have changed Prosecutor Cha in some odd ways. Prosecutor Cha was stunned, especially when he saw a photo of a statue that was only supposed to be in his house. He was puzzled about the heart transplant, arguing that it was highly unlikely he had received Jin-woo's heart because a successful transplant requires matching blood types and heart sizes. Overwhelmed with questions, Prosecutor Cha confronted his father that night for answers. The scene shifts to a flashback that many years ago, when his father was building their house, he hired a student named Marie, who was very talented at making statues. Struck by her beauty, his father had an affair with Marie, which led to the birth of Jin-woo. However, when Dr. Ryu found out about the affair, her husband chose not to take responsibility for his actions with Marie. With a heavy heart, Prosecutor Cha shared the truth with Detective O. That same night, Prosecutor Cha confronted his mother about the ongoing turmoil, showing her heart donation records that had been tampered with by Jin Hospital, where his mother worked. There, Dr. Ryu admitted she had done everything to protect her son from heart disease, even going as far as to sleep only 2 hours a night for the past 20 years to monitor his heart health. Hearing this, Prosecutor Cha was deeply moved and found it impossible to be angry with his mother who had gone to such lengths to save his life. The next day, Young Ju approached Prosecutor Cha, wanting to understand everything. However, Prosecutor Cha, unable to bring himself to take legal action against his mother who had sacrificed so much for him, told Young Ju to back off, saying that dealing with a criminal network of his mother's level was beyond her. That same day, Young Ju, determined to expose the crime that had hurt Jin Woo, gathered her team to strategize. Meanwhile, Prosecutor Cha, resolved to protect his mother, informed everyone about the plans that Young Ju and Detective Oh were making. He revealed that on the night Jin Woo was harmed, reporter Park had recorded the incident. So, Prosecutor Cha advised his mother to bring Marie onto their side as it might help protect her reputation. On the same day, Dr. Ryu tried to meet with Marie, but Marie, with a stern look, ignored her and walked straight to Detective O. There, Marie revealed that a year ago she returned to Korea to meet reporter Park, who had shown her a video of Jin Woo's accident and a recording where Dr. Ryu ordered Chung to harm Jin Woo. Marie also mentioned that a year ago, reporter Park told her he had been considered as a heart donor for Prosecutor Cha, but he was saved from this fate due to his hepatitis. It turned out that reporter Park is actually another son of Prosecutor Cha's father, just like Jin Woo, but from a different mother. At that time, Dr. Ryu, overhearing their conversation, was shocked, especially by how Marie knew about her secret discussion with Chung. Then, Dr. Ryu remembered that only her maid was around when she instructed Chung, suggesting the maid might have leaked the information. At home, the maid bowed deeply to apologize to Dr. Ryu. The maid had been very close to reporter Park, who often visited to comfort and help her. Over time, the maid developed feelings for reporter Park and began to do whatever he asked. She was the one who placed the recording device and hidden camera in Dr. Ryu's house. Furthermore, on the day Jin Woo was attacked, it was the maid who informed reporter Park about the time and place, allowing him to record the incident that happened to Jin Woo. At the office, Detective O shared with his team that reporter Park is actually a brother to both Prosecutor Cha and Jin Woo, sharing the same father. There, Detective O also mentioned that the key to proving their case against Dr. Ryu and Jin Hospital involves proving that reporter Park, who they believe is still alive, can help them. To check the truth about reporter Park's death, Detective O met with the doctor who had identified Park's body. The doctor, feeling uneasy about the hospital's involvement, shockingly revealed to Detective O that the dental X-ray used to identify reporter Park's body was actually from 2019, suggesting that reporter Park might still be alive. Later, Young Ju and Detective O interrogated Chung, who confessed to hurting Jin Woo. However, Young Ju, cleverly realizing the situation, figured out that Chung was taking the blame to protect Dr. Ryu. To expose this, Young Ju showed a video that revealed Dr. Ryu planning the accident with Chung. The scene flashes back a few hours. At that time, Detective O, feeling suspicious about a hotel directly across from Jin Hospital, questioned a hotel employee who might know something about reporter Park's whereabouts. It turned out that reporter Park was indeed still alive and had been secretly hidden in the hotel by Chung. Reporter Park then handed over a file containing evidence against Dr. Ryu and Jin Hospital that had been collected over several years. Now, Young Ju had enough evidence to accuse Chung with the help of the video. Not just Chung, but Dr. Ryu was also called in to explain all the evidence now held by the prosecutor's office. Dr. Ryu, confident of winning, continued to dodge the accusations from Young Ju. Unable to tolerate it any longer, Young Ju brought in reporter Park as a key witness against Dr. Ryu. When Prosecutor Cha saw that reporter Park was still alive, he urged the chief prosecutor to have both Park and Ryu questioned together. In the interrogation room, reporter Park confessed that he had orchestrated the case a year ago involving 3 victims. He had even made Jin Woo a suspect, manipulating the situation so that Dr. Ryu could target Jin Woo's heart for transplantation. This revelation angered Prosecutor Cha, upset that reporter Park hadn't told him this from the start. However, reporter Park, aware of Dr. Ryu's dangerous influence, warned that Dr. Ryu was not just a minor player in the criminal world. He noted that even if they tried 1,000 times to take her down, they would fail 1,001 times. His words proved true when, at that moment, the chief prosecutor, following orders from higher up, instructed Young Ju to release Dr. Ryu. After Prosecutor Cha finished questioning reporter Park, it was Detective O's turn to ask why reporter Park was so determined to confront Dr. Ryu. There, reporter Park explained that his disdain for Dr. Ryu began when he talked to a friend of his biological mother. This friend told him that his mother had been slowly poisoned with drugs, leading to her death, and that he shared the same blood as Prosecutor Cha. Initially, reporter Park was skeptical, but a DNA test confirmed that he and prosecutor Cha indeed shared the same father. At first, reporter Park didn't think much about his mother's death, suspecting it might have been motivated by jealousy from Dr. Ryu. However, one day, after attending a class taught by Dr. Ryu, reporter Park stumbled upon data that suggested Dr. Ryu had plans to harm him to obtain his heart for prosecutor Cha. That's when he started to really despise Dr. Ryu and plotted against her. A year later, reporter Park discovered he had hepatitis, which ironically saved him from being a victim of Dr. Ryu's plans. But then he learned about Jin Woo, who was being lined up as his replacement for a risky experiment by Dr. Ryu. Understanding the danger Jin Woo was in, reporter Park began visiting Wujin City to keep an eye on him. During this time, reporter Park orchestrated a series of criminal cases to get Jin Woo wrongly imprisoned, hoping this would keep Jin Woo safe from Dr. Ryu's plan. At that time, reporter Park's initial plan to protect Jin Woo by getting him imprisoned seemed to be working well. He even managed to convince prosecutor Cha to go along with it. However, with Detective O stepping in to defend Jin Woo, it backfired, leading to Jin Woo being put in a position where Dr. Ryu could take his heart for a transplant for prosecutor Cha. At the office, after the Grand Council ordered Dr. Ryu to be freed, Youngju was feeling confused. Detective O came to her with news that he had uncovered a new crime committed by Dr. Ryu. Reporter Park also informed them that Dr. Ryu was involved in illegal organ trading, and it wasn't just her cause members of the Grand Council were involved too. That same night, prosecutor Cha received hospital CCTV footage from the night Jin Woo died. Looking for more proof, Detective O confronted a representative of the Grand Council directly, accusing him of being part of the illegal activities with Dr. Ryu. Caught off guard, the council representative was shocked and began to panic. Then, the deputy of the Grand Council admitted he was told to keep these activities secret. At that moment Detective O secretly recorded this confession, planning to use it as further evidence against Dr. Ryu. The next day, the trial for Bae Min-kyu, who was found guilty of harming his own wife, started. He was sentenced to life in prison. Meanwhile, reporter Park, the mastermind behind this case and involved in 2 other deaths, was sentenced to death. Soon after, prosecutor Cha's father visited reporter Park in prison. He expressed regret that Park hadn't been open with him from the beginning. There, reporter Park cried, admitting he had once thought his father was as cruel as Dr. Ryu and had always wished he could call him dad just once. Despite the Grand Council's orders to release Dr. Ryu, Youngju didn't give up and managed to secure a trial against her. Dr. Ryu and Chong faced various charges, with several witnesses testifying, including Marie and reporter Park. At the trial, reporter Park shared a poignant thought, noting that unlike others, he and Jin Woo knew the day they were meant to die whenever Dr. Ryu decided. After many witnesses testified, Dr. Ryu still hadn't confessed. Then, Youngju brought in a critical witness and it was prosecutor Cha. He decided it was better to be disliked by his own mother than to let her continue doing wrong. At that time, prosecutor Cha presented a file with CCTV footage from the hospital where Jin Woo had been treated. After seeing the evidence, Dr. Ryu and Chong were finally sentenced to life in prison. A year later, prosecutor Cha's father like a ghost, but he still keeps in touch with his wife and 2 children who are living in Wujin City. On the other hand, Marie organized a gathering in Paris to honor Jin Woo's memory, inviting everyone who had been part of his life. Meanwhile, Detective O and Youngju are experiencing joy as they plan their honeymoon in Paris. At the same time, prosecutor Cha regularly visits the prison to bring letters to his mother, who hasn't read any of his letters for 5 years. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is if you're ever thinking of faking your own death, make sure your dental records are up to date.